You're listening to a weekly podcast made by Miami Dolphin fans for Miami Dolphin fans. Your source for entertaining Dolphin news, insight, and general conversation. Here's your host, Michael Fink.
Welcome once again to the Finfans Podcast. My name is Mike. We're here tonight to go over the offensive side of the ball. With me, I've got Daniel Reinhardt.
Hello.
Hey, Daniel. I've got Jim Johnson.
Howdy.
And I've got Ryan Brady.
Evening, y'all.
And we're going to bring you the offense by position. We'll start with quarterbacks, go to wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, and talk some offensive line. Might even throw in some kickers and punters. And then we'll go ahead and conclude the show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and send it over to Daniel.
Welcome to another exciting episode of your favorite podcast, the Finfans Podcast. And so we're going to start off with the QBs, and I don't think there's going to be much of a surprise for our number one. This is Adam Gase's guy. Like him or love him, this is your guy, and that's Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill obviously is coming back from an ACL injury that he suffered twice in a row. Once after he failed to have the surgery, and then again last training camp. We're getting into the point right now, we're just about on 1 year exactly from that hyperextension that tore that ACL again. So I'm excited to see what he has in store for us, and it looks like the team is rallying around him. It seems like he has become more of a leader, has a little bit more fire, and he's saying some really good things in training and camp about some of the other guys. One of the other guys we'll talk about as well today, tight end with a huge catch radius. But Ryan Tannehill is our guy this year, and staying healthy for Ryan Tannehill is the number one priority of our offense and our team, because we all seen what happened last year with somebody else under center. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill is not the guy who has lit the league on fire, and a lot of people don't believe in him outside of Miami. A lot of people in Miami. So this is going to be a big year for him. So he's our number one. And at our number two quarterback position, I have David Fales. David Fales played a little bit last year in Week 17. He's done some things that Adam Gase seems to love. He has what Adam Gase says are very good quarterback instincts. I don't believe we have another quarterback in training camp right now that's going to make the roster. Brock Osweiler obviously has a little bit of experience under Adam Gase in Denver, but I don't think he makes the final roster. And the other guy, that guy that came in from New York after being cut, this is something that I'm going to say a couple of times today, and I'm going to say this right now for him, and that is cut his ass. I don't see Bryce Petty making our final roster. I don't see him making the final 53. I don't really see him making much of an impact in training camp. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to Jim.
Just one thing on Petty. He's there for target practice.
Absolutely. I don't see him making any sort of an impact.
Yeah, he's a camper.
Yep. So Jim, what do you think about our quarterbacks this season?
Well, like you said, Dan, we've got Ryan Tannehill coming back, and we have to really cross our fingers and toes that he stays healthy. And if he does, and that year off has slowed the game down a bit for him, I think he has the potential to have a stellar season. He's got a lot of weapons now, and there's really no more excuses. So this is a make or break season for Ryan Tannehill. So after this year, we're gonna answer a lot of questions in that area. So obviously Ryan is our number one, and I agree with you as well that David Fales is of the three other bodies here on the team. He's really the only one that I would consider as a backup. And even saying that, I mean, if Ryan goes down, like him or dislike him, he is our best shot at getting anywhere near playoffs. So we have to hope that Ryan stays healthy and can step his game up a little bit. So I'm on the same page with you. What do you think, Ryan?
And Jim, thanks. You bring up some good points. Obviously, Adam Gase has stated over and over and over and over again that Ryan Tannehill is our guy, and Ryan Tannehill is going to be the starter. There's no question. Let's just hope that he continues to build on his final 8 games of 2016, where he had a QBR of 102 and a completion percentage of 68% with a win-loss record of 7-1. So he took on to Adam Gaze's system. He was learning it. He was making it his own. Then last year, he had an entire year of sitting down and just soaking it in and going over game plans and talking with Gaze and seeing exactly how that system was going to benefit him. So Ryan Tannehill is going to be our starter, and I have the utmost confidence that he is going to have a career year. Then let's go on to number 2. David Fales. Obviously, Fales, he is a better quarterback than Brock. In 2014, when he was playing with Gaze for the Chicago Bears, this undrafted free agent beat out a top 50 pick in Jimmy Clausen for the backup QB position. So I see it happening again. David Fales will be our backup. Now, Daniel, I disagree with you on Brock. I think Brock is going to make the final 53 just for one simple thing. If something does happen to Ryan Tannehill, David Fales needs a backup.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I can understand that point of view. I just think that Brock will be available. If something happens to Tannehill, I think Brock will be available. I don't see him signing with anybody else after this. I think this is his last chance.
But you never know. I mean, stranger things have happened. Brock in Denver, his first 2 seasons, I think he was 8-5. He did have a couple good seasons in Denver, which is why Houston gave up such a high draft pick to get him. Brock, he might get something. Who knows? But that's the only reason why I think Brock Osweiler will make the final 53 roster.
Yeah, I just think we have a couple of guys with a little bit of experience in the system now, and that would be, Bryce Petty. God forbid Brock went somewhere else. And also TJ Yates signed for a little bit last year. I just don't think that Brock is worth saving on the roster. I think we could better use that spot for an offensive lineman or someone else.
But Bryce Petty had the 53% completion percentage for his career. He is a terrible quarterback. Agreed. That man played in a good system in college. That's the only reason why he made an NFL roster. But since he's been in the NFL, he's 1-6 with a 53% completion percentage. No way he contributes anything to the Fins in a real NFL game.
I can see that.
Okay, guys. I think we can go back and forth on this. I tend to agree with Daniel. I think it's a 2-horse race. I don't think there's going to be third quarterback kept on the 53. Okay, so we've discussed quarterbacks. Let's go ahead and talk wide receivers. Jim, why don't you start off?
Okay, guys. Put me on the hot seat on the wide receiver position. We're very deep at that position. I got to say that I think our number 1 wide receiver is our most consistent guy in Kenny Stills. He's been doing it right along. He's not up, he's not down. He's usually right there making the plays. From there, we're going to go with Devontae Parker as our number 2 wide out. He's got a lot to prove here. He's really kind of struggled with injury and consistency. He's made some tremendous catches. He's athletic. He's got the size. He's got everything we would want in a number 1 wide receiver, but he just hasn't made that step yet. So he'd be the number 2. And now we've got Danny Amendola and Albert Wilson. These guys are going to be the number 3 and 4 guys. Amendola is already making some progress with Tannehill. I think he's going to be your third guy. He's going to do a lot of slot position stuff plus some outside. And Albert Wilson is going to be your fourth guy. He's going to be your speed package man on the outside, and he's also going to get put into that slot quite a bit. Considering Amendola's had some injury issues in the past, he may not play all 16 games, so Wilson, I'm sure, will be in the slot here and there. And then we've got Mighty Mouse, Jakeem Grant. He's going to see quite a bit of action, I think, as a wide receiver. He's going to be in on kick returns, and I'm sure Adam Gase is going to make up some special plays for him in the backfield. So he's going to be your number 5 guy. And I think the last guy that's going to make the team as a receiver is going to be Isaiah Ford. He's showing a lot of promise, and I think they're going to keep six receivers on the team, and that's going to round out your receiver package. We've got Drew Morgan, who I like a lot, and I'm hoping he's going to end up on the practice squad. So, Ryan, what do you think?
Well, as far as wide receivers, I'm going to throw out a number, 166. That's the amount of targets Jarvis Landry had last year. Now, with the additions of Wilson and Amendola, that should definitely help. And with our other receivers, I think we're definitely going to see more of a mix and more of mismatches with the receiving core. Now, we have Devontae Parker, who this is quite honestly is going to be his make or break season. Last year, he had 670 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. He had 96 targets and something like, I think, 60 receptions. He had some nagging injuries last year and only played 13 games for us. He's come into this preseason with some off-season conditioning questions. Hopefully he lives up to his potential and makes a name for himself, but this is going to be his make-or-break season. And you got Danny Amendola. The man has a 70% catch rate last season. He catches anything thrown to him. Now, granted, he did have Tom Brady thrown to him, so the passes were definitely accurate. He's a student of the game and is going to run the plays exactly how Adam Gase designs them. Albert Wilson, last season, he had a 68% catch rate. He's only started 26 games for Kansas City, and one of the reasons why Kansas City let him go is because they have a very deep wide receiver room, and he's just the type of player that Gase is looking for. High character, leader in that locker room, and he's going to execute the plays as they're drawn up. Jakeem Grant. Now, yeah, I'm excited to see him on the offense, but one thing I am super excited to see is special teams. The new kickoff rules, I think, are going to benefit Jakeem Grant, and I cannot wait to see the plays that Rizzy draws up on kickoffs. You know, a lot of the experts are saying with these new kickoff rules, it's probably going to add anywhere between 5 to 10 yards per kick return, and last year he averaged 23 yards per return. I can definitely see some big plays, some huge kickoff returns, and I think the man is going to get at least 2 kickoff return touchdowns this season. Then the last person I have is Leonte Carroo. I know he's been injury prone, but the Dolphins traded up to get him in the 3rd round of the playoffs, and his offseason conditioning this past year, I'm told, is unbelievable. The man came into training camp with less than 1% body fat. I really see him making some strides and taking that 6th receiver spot. Yeah, I know there's been some talk about Isaiah Ford. If it happens, it happens, but I really see Leonte Carroo making that step up. Now, I save the best for last. Kenny Stills. Kenny Stills is our captain, our team captain, the leader of that wide receiving room. Everyone's talking about, Devontae Parker, Danny Amendola, Albert Wilson. Well, what about Kenny Stills? Kenny Stills last year had a career high 105 targets, 847 yards, and 6 TDs. Guess what he did his last year playing with Ryan Tannehill in 2016? Career high 9 touchdowns. Kenny Stills this year will lead the Miami Dolphins in receiving yards with over 1,100, and he will score double-digit touchdowns. I truly believe that. He is going to have a career year. Daniel, what's your thoughts?
Thanks, Ryan. I think you have fallen off your rocker a little bit. I believe that I have said something similar with Philip Jason when we was on one of our live casts. He did some bold predictions, and I told him that he had fallen down and bumped his head. I think that you may have done the same thing with talking about Leonte Carew. Now, let me just say this.
Sounds like a good guy.
Philip's a great guy, and from all intents and purposes, you are too. That's okay. That doesn't mean we have to think the same. Let me say this. In 2016, we traded up in the 6th round to get Leonte Carew. We also gave up a 3rd and 4th round selections in 2017. There comes a time in every coach's life that he has to admit that he was wrong. A lot of these egos don't like to admit that, but I think that this is finally the time that Adam Gase and the front office admits they was wrong with Leonte Carew. And he is one of my cut his asses for this season. I don't think that he makes that final roster. I don't think that he makes the practice squad. I don't think he's eligible for it. But I don't think that he is on our final 53. Let me say this also. I do have a guy in mind for that 6th receiver role. But let's just say we do not have a true number 1 receiver on this team. Now, Devontae Parker has the opportunity to be. He has the skills to be. He has the size to be. But we do not have a number 1 receiver on this team. He has done nothing but let us down. Kenny Stills, like everybody has said, is the closest thing we have to a number 1 on this team. He's going to be playing the X receiver. He's going to be the weak side split end receiver in this offense. And I do think that he is going to have a great season. I don't know if it's going to be quite the career year we want from him. From everything that I hear in training camp, OTAs, all the work that was done in the offseason after he was signed, it seems to me like Amendola, if healthy, is going to get a large chunk of those 166 that you talked about. I don't think they're all going to go to him. I think that Amendola will probably get around 100 targets this season, but Kenny Stills and Amendola are going to have to split those up, and there's some other ones to go around too. One of those guys is Devontae Parker. He's going to be the Z receiver. He's going to be our flanker on the strong side. Tannehill's going to expect him to go up and get some balls. He also, like our rookie tight end, has a wide catch radius. He can catch he can catch balls that are thrown high off to the side behind him. He has those abilities. We have yet to see it fully come to fruition on our offense. Hopefully he does take advantage of that this season and just kick some ass for us. The other guy that we signed this offseason is Albert Wilson. And going into the offseason workouts and the training camp, I would have expected Wilson to be coming in the slot as a wide receiver, the one that Amendola is going to fill. I thought they would be splitting a lot of time in there at the slot. But from what Adam Gase is saying is that Wilson is not a slot receiver. Now, I'm not going to take into account too much that's happened so far in training camp. We've only been, 5-6 days. And you can't honestly look at what has happened and absolutely take that as 100% fact. I do think that Wilson is going to be in there in the slot. He's going to be spread around a lot. He's going to get a lot of targets this season too. But he's going to be on the outside as well. So that's going to be our top 4 guys. And at our 5th position, our 5th wide receiver position, Jim said it so eloquently, Mighty Mouse. Now, Mighty Mouse, Jakeem Grant is going to have a role in this offense this year that is going to be expanded even further than it was last year. It's going to go beyond special teams. He is going to have a big impact, and I cannot wait to see him get down the field, stretch out the seam, and open up the middle of the field for the likes of our rookie tight end that we'll talk about here in a little bit. I see for our 6th receiver position, I see Isaiah Ford. I mean, plain and simple, there's a couple of things I really like about Isaiah Ford. He wears number 15, and if you remember Devon Best made a huge impact on our team. I'm not saying that Isaiah Ford is going to be Devon Best, but I like that number, and I would like to see it on the field. Isaiah Ford rehabbed with Tannehill and Raekwon McMillan this offseason. He is the one receiver that Tannehill was able to throw with while he was working out that it was legal to do so. Because of all the NFL rules. So he has some rapport with Tannehill this offseason and in the pre-workout workouts. I think that as long as Isaiah Ford can stay out of that red jersey and he can suit up for training camp, that he will be our 6th guy. I would also say to watch out for the likes of Rashawn Scott, the former Miami Hurricane. And as Jim said Drew Morgan. I do like Drew Morgan. Watch out for him as well. I think Drew Morgan and Rashawn Scott both have an opportunity to make this team if Isaiah Ford does not stay healthy. But I wouldn't want to necessarily put either of those guys on the practice squad because I don't know if we'll be able to keep them. So it's going to be one of those three. I think Isaiah Ford finally comes away with it. I do not see Malcolm Lewis making this roster. And that is what I see from our wide receivers this season. I'm looking forward to seeing that group on the field.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, who do you think is backing Amendola?
I think Jakeem Grant's going to be in the slot.
You would put that little tiny Mighty Mouse in the slot?
I absolutely would. He has the speed to get separation inside. He has a lot of the Jarvis Landry qualities. Jarvis Landry is not your typical... Looking at Jarvis Landry, I wouldn't say that man's going to be a slot receiver. But I think Jakeem Grant can do some wonders in there. Yeah.
But Jakeem Grant, 5'6", going across the middle. He's 180 pounds.
I don't think that he's going to catch a lot of balls across the middle. I think what he's going to do is he's going to catch them on the outside after those crossing routes. He's got the speed to get out there past your typical tight end windows. I think he's going to be all over the field, but I think Wilson and Jakeem Grant are going to play a lot in the slot.
But
Yeah.
Kenny Stills lined up a lot in the slot too last year, so
He did. I'm thinking it might be a little more Isaiah Ford, but
I actually have on my list here, I have Jakeem Grant as the backup Z to Devontae Parker. But the more I think about it, the more I think that they're going to line him up everywhere. They're going to create mismatches. And I think that Jakeem Grant on that nickel back is going to be a good mismatch.
I think Gase is intent on matchups. So it could be anybody, anywhere,
100%.
at any time. Okay,
100%.
we know that. But I'm talking, in general. If Amendola were to go down to injury, who do you think they would put in that spot? And basically what you're telling me is you think it's Grant.
Well, if Amendola went down with an injury, no, I don't think that it would be Grant inside 100% of the time. I think you probably are right. Isaiah Ford would be more capable of handling that every down roll. But I think Jakeem Grant's going to come in there as a substitute quite a bit to create those mismatches.
I agree. Okay.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
think
Jim.
I think that, like you said, Mike, Isaiah Ford is going to probably get some attention in the slot. But I think they're going to use Albert Wilson. That's where he played with Kansas City, and I think they're going to utilize him there should, Amendola be out. But they will be using Jakeem Grant, I think, in multiple places to keep the defense off balance and create those mismatches that we're looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
no-
keep in mind, Rashawn Scott and Isaiah Ford are almost identical in size. So if something did happen and Isaiah Ford wasn't able to make the roster, I think Rashawn Scott is a great option in the inside too.
All right. Ryan, what do you think of the tight ends?
Well, the tight ends, you got Mike Gesicki. Had 9 touchdown receptions last year. He's a big guy. He's a big target. And Ryan Tannehill has been showing that he likes to throw to him. And Gesicki's been making some pretty impressive catches so far into this training camp. I think he was a great pick. I think he's got the frame and the ability to be a difference-making tight end. Just hopefully Washburn can work with him and get him on his blocking skills. You've got Smythe, more of a blocking tight end than a receiving tight end because he came out of Notre Dame, and Notre Dame has an NFL-style offensive line. Not to say he can't catch the ball. In his college season, he had 28 receptions for 381 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, again, not to say he can't catch the ball. He can. Hopefully, we can work with him and get him to that tight end level. And you've got Marquise Gray. He's been a special teams guy for us, and he's also worked as a blocking fullback. I think he'll squeeze in and make a tight end position. I mean, a special team position. You've got A.J. Derby, a person we claimed off of waivers last year during the season. I really would like to see what he's made of. I don't think we're going to. I don't think he makes the 53-man roster. He may make the practice squad. I've heard a lot of analysts talk about him and saying he does have some good ability. But unfortunately, with our top 3 tight ends, I don't see him making the 53-man roster. And you got Gavin Escobar. He was a hot prospect coming out in 2013, but he just hasn't really panned out in the NFL. I think he's getting cut. You got Thomas I can't even pronounce his last name. Duarte. Again, as Daniel would say, cut his ass.
Cut his ass.
That's pretty much it for tight ends. Daniel, and what do you have to add?
Yeah, you stole my thunder with Duarte because he's on my cut his ass list. I just don't see him working out for us. Obviously, we spent some draft equity on him, but it wasn't much. 7th round draft pick coming out of UCLA. I had a little bit of hope for him. But as of now, he hasn't panned out to anything. I think he makes the practice squad at best, and he may not even make that. As far as our other tight ends, I do see 4 of them making the roster. I think A.J. Derby makes the roster this year. A.J. Derby was a former college quarterback. He's very wise to the position groups, on the offense. And to go with that, so is Marquise Gray. He was also a college quarterback at Minnesota. And they are both very wise to the offensive roles. I think that they will help our 2 rookie tight ends, and Durham Smythe and Mike Gesicki. Those guys are both going to be on the roster too, and I don't think Gavin Escobar makes the roster. Gavin Escobar is a good blocker, and the guy to watch in this group would be A.J. Derby. I do think that he is on the roster bubble. He may not make the squad, and if we keep a 4th tight end, I do think it is him, but it may be Gavin Escobar to kind of round out that blocking section for the tight end group. I just think that the smarts and the wise play of 2 guys, former quarterbacks, that can help those rookies come along, I think that's what keeps them on the roster. As far as Durham Smythe goes, yeah, Notre Dame, they are known for putting some tight ends in the NFL. See Anthony Fasano, great blocking tight end, underutilized pass catching abilities, but I do think that he's going to surprise a few people this year and catch more balls that are thrown his way than he typically would have in college. I think that he was underutilized. I think that Ryan Tannehill will utilize the tight end position this year. I think Durham Smythe is going to be the benefit of that, but more so would be Mike Gesicki. Coming out of Penn State, I wasn't on his side, honestly. Yes, I've seen him play in the Big Ten. He has an amazing skill set. He's in the 98th percentile of all tight ends coming out of the draft at the combine, and we have a guy in our group named Matt Hawk who was all over Gesicki coming out. And Matt, I know that you are proud to have him on our roster and proud to have him as our number 1 tight end. And honestly, so am I. Some of the things that I've seen out of this man is just awe-inspiring. And just so that you know, Matt, and everybody else listening, I do think that Gesicki has 10 touchdowns this year. Now, that is high praise for a rookie, but I think that he is going to be utilized exceptionally in the red zone. I don't necessarily know that he's going to be used too much between the 20s, but I think when we get in the red zone, that efficiency is going to go up because we're going to use Mike Gesicki a lot. So that catch radius, that awesome leaping ability, his size, his hands, all of those are going to be fantastic for us this year in the year of Ryan Tannehill. So that's what I see for our tight end groups. Jim, how are you thinking about these guys this year?
Yeah, I think we got a great group of TEs right now. We do have Gesicki coming in. I think he's going to really help the red zone game. He's going to open up a lot of things that we just couldn't do the last couple of years. Durham Smythe, like you said, he's primarily considered a blocking TE, but the guy's got some good attributes and should be able to, make as much or more of an impact than Gray or Derby or, a guy like Clay did a few years back. So I see him getting utilized both in the running and the passing game. And Marquise Gray and A.J. Derby, I honestly think they're going to be on the team. I think they're going to keep 4 tight ends, and Gase likes guys that have already worked with him for a period of time, and I think you're going to see those 4 on the roster. Escobar hasn't been able to, he stayed in Dallas for several years, but Baltimore and Kansas City both looked at him, and he couldn't land there either. So I think he'll be cut, and Duarte, the same thing. He's going to be gone.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Jim. I do think they're going to keep 4 tight ends also. And the thing I don't think you guys mentioned about Gazeki is his body lean. He's really good at boxing out defenders, and that's something we have not seen around here in a long time.
Oh, he played basketball and volleyball. He is a multi-sport athlete and just incredibly athletic.
All right, so let's talk running backs. And Jim, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, we've got Kenyon Drake that's really should be able to really take off this year. He proved himself well the end of last season, and he was one of the best running backs in all of the NFL. Whether he can stay healthy and can prove that he's the number 1 guy throughout the season remains to be seen. He played a backup role throughout college, of course, but that's the only question he has to answer right now. So I really think it's his job to lose. You're going to have Frank Gore that's going to be mentoring him a bit and really kind of teaching him a few things, and of course, catching the ball out of the backfield and all. But I think Drake and Gore are going to be your 2 guys that are going to do most of the ball carrying. We've got a new guy in Kalen Ballage. He's showing a lot of promise as a rookie, and I'm thinking that he's going to see quite a bit more time than you would expect, but it's going to be relatively limited. But they will get him into some game situations. The guy that's on the bubble to me is Centereese Perry. He's been around and just hasn't really made a spot for himself.
All aboard the Drake train. So we got rid of JJ, and he was known as the J chain, right? So I am going to key the phrase right now, all aboard the Drake train. Kenyon Drake had a career high in carries last year with 133, I believe. And he had been nothing but a backup and split duties all the way up through last season when Damian Williams went down. And like you said, Jim, he was electric. I watched some tape of him last night, as a matter of fact. I watched some of his highlights, and he had strength. He was elusive. He had burst. He could get past the second line, and he could finish runs, and I'm just really excited to see what he can do this year. If you paid attention to the live cast that I had done with Philip Jason previously, I had a bold prediction that he would have almost 1,900 total yards and 12 touchdowns. I think Kenyon Drake has an opportunity to be pretty much the MVP of the AFC East. I think that he's going to carry our team on his shoulders this year. We do have Frank Gore, and Frank Gore is... What can I say about Frank Gore? He is in the top 10 in career yards for the NFL all time. He just does not seem to age in training camp and the offseason this year. So far, he looks fantastic. He looks like he hasn't missed a beat, lost a step, any of those things. I do think that he is going to be merely a change of pace back, one who can get the hard yardage, one that comes in to spell Drake. I don't think it's going to be a 50-50 split. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to be closer to 75-25. I think 70-30 would even be pushing it a little bit. What I see from Frank Gore is probably around 400 to 500 total yards this year. I do think that he is an awesome back. I just don't think that he is going to be the key cog in the wheel that runs our offense this season. I do like Kalen Ballage coming out of Arizona State. I think that he has some power. He is quick. He is really athletic. I think he needs to learn to hit with his shoulder pads when he's going into the hole, when he's running into defenders. I think that he stands too far straight up and down. I think that he has an opportunity to also make an impact on our offense this year. I just don't think that this is the year that he's going to have a big impact. Mind you, that everything can change with injury, but I think Kalen Ballage will be on the roster. I just don't think he's going to make a huge impact. The Sonoris Perry, I also think that he will not make the roster, Jim. I think you're right there. He has been on the roster the last couple of years. He has made a big impact on special teams. I just don't think that he's going to this season. I think it's time to move on from him. However, it would not surprise me to see Adam Gase keep him because, like you had said before, Jim, Adam Gase likes his guys, people who have experience with him. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him keep him on the roster, but I think we would have better use of a roster spot for an offensive lineman or a linebacker. I also think that the man to watch in this battle is Gregory Buddy Howell. He does have some electricity running through his feet. I think that he would be a guy to watch. It's a possibility that he makes the squad specifically for his role in special teams. But in the end, I think he makes the practice squad this year. That's what I see out of the running backs, and I will throw it to the next man.
Thanks, Daniel. We got one saying right now. Make America Drake again. Kenyon Drake. Last year he came on, had 133 carries. He averaged 4.8 yards per carry. In fact, his yards after contact was more than Frank Gore's yards per carry last year. Think about that stat. One big question about Kenyon Drake is he was never really a number one back in college, and up until the last 5 games of last year, he was never a number one back in the NFL. Does his body have what it takes to touch the ball 20, 30 times a game? We will see. We hope so. He's got a lot of good potential. The man, in those last 5 games, we saw him break so many tackles with ease and juke some of the best linebackers in the game. Then you got Frank Gore, the ageless wonder. In his entire career, he's only missed 11 games. And going back to 2006, he's had at least 1,200 yards from scrimmage. That's an incredible number. 12 straight years with 1,200 yards or more from scrimmage. No other NFL player has ever done that. It's a crazy stat, or NFL running back has ever done that. Last year, on 3rd and 4th down conversions, on 3rd and 4th down and short conversions, he came back with an 87% success rate. He's got a great conditioning program. He takes care of his body, and he knows how to play the game. Kalen Ballage. About 2 weeks before the NFL draft, I was listening to the NFL radio, and I heard an interview with Kalen Ballage, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this guy sounds amazing. And then they were talking about in one game of his college career, he scored 6 touchdowns in one game, 5 rushing and 1 receiving. The man can play, and the man plays with a chip on his shoulder. I don't think we're going to see anything really big from him this year, maybe a little bit of special teams, and maybe a year or 2 from now, he'll be that all-pro back. Sonoris Perry, but I agree with both of y'all. I don't see him making the team. I think Buddy Howell fills out that running back room.
I like it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they keep Perry or not. I honestly don't. Familiarity sometimes buys you a job, so we'll see. Let's go ahead and talk offensive line. Daniel, why don't you start us off?
So we're in better shape this year at offensive line than we have been in a while. At least that's the way it seems to me. I feel a little bit more confident with what we have going on that front line, our front line of offense. You hear front line of defense a lot, but on the front line of our offense, I think we're doing better this year than we have in a while. And I think most of that has to do with the depth that we have and the opportunity to have a couple of players that can move around on that offensive line, that guys that are going to be our backups. And I'm talking about guys like Ted Larson, Eric Smith, and Sam Young. I do think Eric Smith and Sam Young both make the roster as tackles, but Sam Young can move around. He's been playing at right tackle in training camp because of an injury to Juwan James, a soft muscle injury from what I understand. And there is a little bit of concern with me as far as James staying healthy. But I do have confidence that Sam Young can come in for a couple of game stretch and be a decent backup. I also think that Isaac Asiata makes our roster this year. He's the cousin of Matt Asiata. I think Jesse Davis and Josh Sitton both are the starting guards this season. Obviously, we have Daniel Kilgore at our starting center, the man who's coming in and taking over for Mike Pouncey. Mike Pouncey moved on unceremoniously this season, and Daniel Kilgore is going to come in with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He was given to us. He was basically handed to us by San Francisco for a swap of 7th-round picks, and he also, like Pouncey has going into LA, has a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Tunsil and Juwan James are going to be our bookends. Laramie Tunsil has something to prove this year. He come in as a very highly touted prospect a couple of years ago. This will be his second year at the left tackle spot. Last year he had quite a few penalties, and I think that having Sitton next to him, I think I've heard it a bunch of times this offseason, but having Sitton next to him at left guard is going to do wonders for him. If there's not a revolving door next to him and he knows that guy is solid next to him, somebody that he can lean on, I don't think he's going to be so worried about his inside shoulder, and what he's going to do is he's just going to beast mode out there. So our starting offensive line from left to right, Laramie Tunsil, Josh Sitton, Daniel Kilgore, Jesse Davis, and Juwan James. And then our backups there is going to be Isaac Asiata. We did put some draft equity into him, and he learned all of last season. I don't think we're ready to give up on his footwork yet. Ted Larson is going to be our other backup guard, and he can also move into the center position. He's pretty much a utility player there on that line. Eric Smith and Sam Young as our tackles. So I have us keeping 9 offensive linemen. I don't see us keeping Jake Brendel or Matthews on that line, and I definitely don't think that Zach Stirrup is going to make the roster. Zach Stirrup, he just did not look good last year. I don't really think that he has much to offer us except for a camp body, and I think the same goes for Joseph Rubens, the tackle from Buffalo. I think he ends up making the practice squad this year. Jim?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with you, Dan. We're going to have the starters just like you described them. The backups are a concern for me because I don't have a lot of faith in any of them, really. I got to agree with you on Eric Smith, Ted Larson, Sam Young. And Asiata, I would love to see him get his feet going and really grab onto that guard position, but I don't know if the light bulb's going to go on with him. But yeah, the only question in my mind is, do they keep 9 linemen or do they jump it up to 10? With Juwan James's injury issues and Kilgore and Sitton have a little bit of age on them, so we may want to keep 10. But if that's the case, maybe Jake Brendel or Mike Matthews makes it in there. But either way, I think we are in a better position to do more things on the offensive line, and I hope we keep Tannehill in one piece and we break some records. Ryan?
Absolutely. Our offensive line this offseason, I think Mike Tannenbaum, Chris Gear, and Adam Gaze has built this offensive line for Ryan Tannehill. This offensive line, we pretty much have a good pass blocking, pass protection offensive line. Just a couple of things to add. Laramie Tunsil, he needs to work on his penalties, as you said, Daniel. Last year, we were the second highest penalized team in the NFL with 137 penalties for 1,154 yards and 2,800 plays. And Laramie Tunsil led our team in penalties with 12, and 9 of them were pre-snap penalties. He's got to work on the penalties. I think Juwan James has a Pro Bowl year. He's in a contract year. I think he's going to stay healthy. And the biggest thing with him is staying healthy. As long as he stays healthy, he's a Pro Bowl caliber tackle. I definitely see him staying healthy and hopefully making the Pro Bowl. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Juwan James was, I think, PFF rated top 5 right tackle last season while he was healthy. Mike?
He's got to find consistency to be a Pro Bowl player. If he finds that consistency, then I agree. He has the talent to be that. His problem has been, in my opinion, consistency. He just doesn't play consistent from game to game.
Yeah, it's a make or break year for him, too.
Yeah, no question. I agree.
So who's going to win the kicker job, Ryan?
The kicker job, we draft a kicker. We spend a draft pick on it. It's going to be Jason Sanders. I know he hasn't started off the best in camp, but I think he comes out and wins the job. And if any coordinator I have faith in to mold a player and make a player better, Dan Rizzi has that ability to turn him into a great kicker.
Darren Rizzi does absolutely. And from what I understand, Jason Sanders has had an awesome training camp to this point. I also agree. I think he's our kicker come opening day.
Yeah, I don't see Greg Joseph getting anywhere near close to what Sanders has done in all the practices. So Sanders will be your place kicker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other special team notes you guys want to bring up?
I think Denny's our long snapper. I don't think that there's an opportunity really to move on from him. I think we got a rookie in camp, but he's not going to take over. Denny's going to be our long snapper, and Hawk's going to be our punter.
All right, give me a surprise cut in camp.
Oh boy, a surprise cut for the offense or the defense. I think that I've already gave you mine last episode, and I think that Jordan Phillips is expendable this season. I don't like him. I don't like him. He has some talent, but I think that if there is one surprise cut, he's the man.
Ryan?
I think it's gonna be Sonoris Perry. He's been in our special teams last couple seasons, and I think he gets cut.
Jim?
Yeah, the guy I think is going to be out. It's not really a big surprise, but I think it's Carew, the receiver. I mean, we did spend some capital on him, and a lot of people think he's going to make the roster for that reason, as a pet project or something. But I think he's going to be gone come 53 time.
Yeah, I think I agree with Carew. I'm not sure I agree with the other two.
You think I'm off my rocker?
Yeah,
I do.
We do.
I do.
Yeah, that's okay. That's why it's called a surprise.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And if it happens, I'll say you nailed it. But I don't see it. I just don't see it because I don't see that person behind him that's going to push him.
Yeah, I think the likelihood of it happening is very slim. I really do. But if there is one man that...
I mean, I hope that happens because that means we have somebody better.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Uh-huh. All right, guys, let's go ahead and close this episode. Again, it ran a little long this week, but that's okay. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank you guys for doing this with me. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. We'll go ahead and next week begin more of a regular format, and we'll tell you more about that when you tune in next week. You guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All aboard the Drake train. Fins up!
Fins up, brothers!